For us to be able to describe the specifics of that conversation in a setting like this to give the opportunity for the other heads of state to ask questions about Russian intentions, I think was extremely useful. Question: were you able to secure any new commitments on the stabilization effort? I mean, you were asking for aid. Did you get any? President Obama, we've been able to secure additional commitments. With respect to the counter-ISIL campaign more broadly. With respect to direct help to the Iraqi government, what I recommended was that we wait to assess how the current government turmoil in Iraq plays itself out over the next couple of weeks before we make final decisions about how useful particular offers of assistance will be. Although, already what we've seen is, for example, the government of Kuwait over the last year has deferred payments that were required under the U. N resolution between Iraq and Kuwait. That's worth a couple of $2 billion to the Iraqi government. And we described our efforts to make sure that in addition to the military assistance that we're providing Iraq, that we're also focusing on these stabilization functions. But frankly, right now in Baghdad, there's some big challenges in terms of Prime Minister Abadi forming a new government or a new cabinet. Until that's settled, I think it's important for us to make sure that any additional stabilization dollars that are put in are going to be effectively spent. Greg Jaffe. question, I was going to ask, since you just spoke about Prime Minister Abadi. How concerned are you about his hold on power? Are there things that the GCC partners can do to help solidify his government? And then, did you guys talk about a plan B in Syria if the cessation of hostilities falters? And then lastly, I was just going to ask. Have you contemplated adding additional special forces in Syria to bolster the counter-ISIL fight? And what might it take for you to make that decision? President Obama, good. On the first item, I'm concerned. I think Prime Minister Abadi has been a good partner for us. But interestingly enough, right now in Baghdad, the challenges within the government don't fall along the usual lines of Kurdish Sunni Shia. There's actually significant dissension and disputes even among the Shia power blocs. Obviously, ultimately it's up to the Iraqis to make these decisions. It's not up to us, it's not up to the Iranians, it's not up to GCC countries. It's up to the Iraqi people to determine the government that they form. We do think, however, that it is vital for the health and stability of Iraq. That the cabinet and the makeup of government is finalized and stabilized. And we've been urging them to get the job done. And we have contacts with all the various factions and parties, saying to them they have to take the long view. And think about the well-being of the country at a time when they're still fighting Daesh. Mosul is still under ISIL control. At a time when, because of low oil prices, they've got challenges with respect to their budget. There's a dam that needs to be fixed. They've got a lot on their plate. Now is not the time for government gridlock or bickering. With respect to Syria, we had discussions about what options are. Available to us should the current cessation of hostilities break down. None of the options are good. It has been my view consistently that we have to get a political solution inside of Syria, and that all the external actors involved have to be committed to that, as well as the actors inside of Syria. Certainly that's what the Syrian people want. They want an end to the bombing. They want to be able to go back to their homes. They want to be able to farm their lands and run their businesses and send their kids to school. And the problem with any plan B that does not involve a political settlement is that it means more fighting, potentially for years. And whoever comes out on top will be standing on top of a country. That's been devastated, and that will then take years to rebuild. So the sooner we can end fighting and resolve this in a political fashion, the better. The primary reasons that we have been emphasizing the need for Assad to go is not just because he's killed his people and barrel-bombed women and children, it's that it is hard to conceive of him being at the head of a government that would end the fighting because it was perceived as legitimate. That's what we have to emphasize, that's what we have to work on. I'm going to take one last question. I assume this is Arab press, not just you. Go ahead, but there are other people here. Question, what, Mr. President, do you think the main issue or case that you have a different opinion? Between GCC and the United States, and is something you think there is different? President Obama, I think that, overall, there's a broad consensus in assisting each other in our collective security. The GCC hosts the United States. And we could not operate effectively militarily in the region if it weren't for GCC countries. Our intelligence sharing is vital in fighting against terrorism, and has consistently improved. We're starting to see the need to cooperate on new threats like cyber attacks, for example. Our efforts as a consequence of these summits to form a unified ballistic missile defense is very important. Our belief that the prosperity and stability of the region depends on countries treating all their citizens fairly, and that sectarianism is an enemy of peace and prosperity. That if people are seeing themselves not as a citizen of a country but as a member of a particular branch of Islam, that is a recipe for countries falling apart. I think there's broad agreement there. Probably the biggest area where there's been tactical differences has been with respect to Iran. And the issue is not the need for shared cooperation to deter. Against Iranian provocations. On that, we're all agreed. I think that there has been concern, even when we were working on the Iran nuclear deal. That if we were in discussions with them about these issues, that somehow Iran would feel emboldened to act more provocatively in the region. And what I've said to them is we have to have a dual track. We have to be effective in our defenses and hold Iran to account where it is acting in ways that are contrary. To international rules and norms. But we also have to have the capacity to enter into a dialogue to reduce tensions and to identify ways in which the more reasonable forces inside of Iran can negotiate with the countries in the region. With its neighbors, so that we don't see an escalation of proxy fights across the region. And I think that that view is one that is consistent with how many in the GCC view it. But because there's been so much mistrust that's been built up in part because of Iranian provocations that people are cautious. And want to make sure that nobody is naive about what Iran may be doing to stir up problems in other countries. And what we've consistently shown them is we're not naive. But as I pointed out, during the height of the Cold War, both Democratic presidents like John F. Kennedy and Republican presidents like Ronald Reagan still negotiated with the Soviet Union. Even when the Soviet Union was threatening the destruction of the United States. There was still dialogue so that we could find ways to reduce tensions and the dangers of war and chaos. And that's the same approach that we have to take. Even as Iran is calling us the Great Satan. We were able to get a deal done where they got rid of their nuclear stockpiles, and that makes us safer. That's not a sign of weakness, that's a sign of strength. Thank you very much, everybody. Barack Obama. Second Democratic presidential nomination acceptance speech. Delivered September 6, 2012, Charlotte, North Carolina. Thank you, so much. Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Michelle, I love you so much. A few nights ago, everybody was reminded just what a lucky man I am. The other night, I think the entire country saw just how lucky I am. Malia and Sasha, we are so proud of you. And yes, you do have to go to school in the morning. And Joe Biden, thank you for being the very best vice president I could have ever hoped for. And being a strong and loyal friend. Madam Chairwoman, delegates, I accept your nomination for President of the United States. Now, the first time I addressed this convention in 2004, I was a younger man. A Senate candidate from Illinois who spoke about hope, not blind optimism, not wishful thinking. But hope in the face of difficulty, hope in the face of uncertainty, that dogged faith in the future which has pushed this nation forward. Even when the odds are great, even when the road is long. Eight years later, that hope has been tested by the cost of war. By one of the worst economic crises in history, and by political gridlock that's left us. wondering whether it's still even possible to tackle the challenges of our time.